Israel Adesanya just dropped a bombshell that has the entire MMA world talking. His ex-girlfriend tried to take his millions, and after months of silence, the last stylebender finally spoke out. This story is absolutely insane, and it gets crazier the deeper we dig. Stick around, because we're about to break down everything you need to know about this shocking situation. For months, Izzy stayed completely quiet about this situation. And if you know anything about Israel Adesanya, you know this guy is not quiet. He's the same fighter who dances into the octagon, talks trash to his opponents, and isn't afraid to speak his mind about anything. So his silence was loud. But recently, he broke that silence, and what he said has everyone picking sides. And to understand why this case is so shocking, we need to first understand who Israel Adesanya is. Born in Lagos, Nigeria back in 1989, Israel wasn't your typical future fighter. This kid was into anime, loved dancing, and spent his time drawing. In a rough neighborhood where those interests could make you a target, young Israel actually got bullied for being different. That bullying pushed him toward martial arts, not just to defend himself, but to build confidence. His family eventually moved to New Zealand, and that's where his combat sports journey really took off. But MMA fans might not know, Israel didn't start in MMA. He was actually a decorated kickboxer first, racking up over 80 fights. That's more fights than most UFC fighters have in their entire careers. His striking style was like watching an artist work. Flashy, creative, but deadly effective. When he finally joined the UFC in 2018, he wasn't some rookie figuring things out. He was a seasoned combat sports veteran ready to take over. And take over he did. Within just 1 year, Israel captured the UFC middleweight championship. He beat legends like Anderson Silva, his childhood hero. He dominated Robert Whittaker. He knocked out Paulo Costa so bad that Costa's still making excuses about it. With that success came serious money. Major sponsorship deals, pay-per-view bonuses, international fame. Israel went from that bullied kid in Lagos to a multi-millionaire sports superstar. And it's exactly that fortune that became the center of this controversy. So let's talk about what actually happened here, because the details are absolutely wild. In 2023, reports started surfacing that Israel's ex-girlfriend was making moves to claim a share of his assets. Now, we're not going to name her because she's kept a relatively low profile throughout this, but the claims she was making were unprecedented in MMA. But the most shocking thing is that they were never married. In most celebrity asset battles you hear about, there's usually a marriage involved. But this case was different. This was an ex-girlfriend demanding money from the wealth that Israel earned by getting his face punched in professionally. The basis of her claim was that she supported Israel during his rise to fame, and therefore deserved compensation for the lifestyle they built together. This falls under something called palimony, basically where an unmarried partner seeks financial support after a breakup. Now, palimony cases aren't completely unheard of in celebrity circles, but they're rare and hard to win. The person claiming it usually has to prove they made significant sacrifices or contributions that directly helped build the other person's wealth. We've seen this with other celebrities before. Mel Gibson had a similar situation, Tiger Woods faced complex asset disputes, even tech billionaire Elon Musk has dealt with relationship-related financial battles. But there's a key difference. Most of these involved marriage or children. Israel's case had neither. No marriage certificate, no kids together, no signed agreement. How do you try to claim millions from someone you dated when that person built their empire through their own talent and hard work? For months after these reports came out, Israel did something completely out of character. He went silent. And I mean silent. This is the same guy who regularly posts on social media, gives entertaining interviews, and never backs down from speaking his mind. Remember his beef with Jon Jones? He was talking about that constantly. His rivalries with other fighters, he's always ready with a comeback or a witty response. But when it came to this situation with his ex, radio silence. There are several reasons why he might have chosen to stay quiet initially. First, his legal team probably advised him to keep his mouth shut until they figured out exactly what they were dealing with. In legal battles, especially ones involving money, anything you say can be used against you later. Second, this was deeply personal. Israel has been open about mental health struggles that fighters face. Having someone you once cared about try to take your hard-earned money, that's not just a legal issue. That's an emotional betrayal that can mess with your head. There's also a cultural element here. Coming from a Nigerian background, Israel grew up valuing privacy when it comes to personal matters. Nigerian culture often emphasizes handling family and relationship issues privately, away from public scrutiny. But that silence was getting loud. Fans were asking questions, media outlets were speculating, the MMA community was waiting to hear his side of the story. Then, finally, Israel broke his silence. And when he did speak, his words hit harder than his left hook. He didn't release some long legal statement through lawyers. He didn't do a formal press conference. Instead, he addressed it the way modern athletes do, through social media posts that felt raw and authentic.
The tone of his response was clear. This was betrayal, plain and simple. He hinted that his ex was motivated purely by greed, that she felt entitled to wealth she hadn't earned through her own work. Israel was careful not to name his ex directly, keeping things somewhat respectful despite his obvious frustration. But the message was unmistakable. He felt blindsided by someone he had trusted. The response from fans was immediate and massive. Twitter exploded with support for Israel. Instagram comments were flooded with people sharing their own relationship horror stories. MMA forums had endless threads analyzing every word he said. But this wasn't just about one fighter's personal drama. Israel's words struck a chord with men around the world who felt they had experienced similar situations, being taken advantage of financially in relationships. His statement sparked conversations about fairness, entitlement, and where the line should be drawn between love and money. Unlike typical UFC trash talk, this was real life, affecting a real person. And, in many ways, it resonated more powerfully than any pre-fight hype. Now, let's talk about the legal side of this, because it's actually more complicated than you might think. Can an ex-girlfriend really claim assets if there was no marriage? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It depends on where you live and the specific circumstances. In New Zealand, where Israel lives, there are laws protecting de facto partners. If a couple lives together for a certain period, usually around 3 years, they may have some rights similar to married couples. This can include claims to property, savings, or financial support after a breakup. In the United States, similar situations fall under palimony laws, though success rates are mixed and it varies by state. California, for example, has seen several high-profile palimony cases over the years. For Israel's ex to have a legitimate legal case, she would need to prove several things. Did she financially support him during his career? Did she sacrifice her own career opportunities to support his? Did she directly contribute to building his brand or business ventures? Did they live together long enough to qualify for de facto partnership status? These are incredibly difficult things to prove in court. Emotional support, while valuable in a relationship, doesn't typically translate to financial compensation. You need documented evidence of actual contributions to the person's wealth or career. The burden of proof is high, and that's intentional. Otherwise, anyone who dated a successful person could potentially claim they deserve a piece of that success. This case ignited debates that went way beyond MMA. It became a cultural battleground for discussions about gender, relationships, and money. On one side, you had people, mostly men, who saw this as proof of a system where successful men are unfairly targeted for their wealth. They viewed it as a gold digger situation, where someone was trying to profit off a relationship after it ended. On the other side, people, including many women, argued that we don't know the full story. Maybe she did make real sacrifices for his career. Maybe she provided emotional stability that helped him succeed. Maybe there's more to this situation than what's been made public. Now, how did this affect Israel's fighting career and public image? The UFC, as an organization, stayed officially quiet about the situation. They rarely comment on fighters' personal lives unless it directly impacts their ability to compete or promotes the sport. But behind the scenes, they understand that controversy can actually be good for business. Think about Conor McGregor. Half of his fame comes from his antics and controversies outside the Octagon. Drama sells. And the UFC knows it. Israel's personal situation became content for MMA podcasts, blogs, and social media discussions. Some people worried this distraction could hurt his performance in the Octagon. When your personal life is under a microscope, it can be hard to focus on training and fighting. Mental distractions have derailed many promising careers in combat sports, but others argued it could make him more dangerous. Having something to prove, fighting with emotion and motivation, these can actually enhance a fighter's performance. Some of the greatest performances in combat sports history have come from fighters dealing with personal adversity. So what can we learn from Israel's situation? Because this isn't just about one famous fighter, there are lessons here for everyone. First, if you're an athlete, entertainer, or anyone building significant wealth, you need legal protection. Prenuptial agreements if you're getting married. Cohabitation contracts if you're moving in together. Clear financial boundaries from the start. Israel's case shows how vulnerable even multi-millionaires can be without proper legal planning. It doesn't matter how much money you make if you don't protect it properly. Second, fame and money change relationship dynamics. When someone becomes successful, it can be hard to know if people are with you for who you are or what you have. This isn't just paranoia, it's a real challenge that comes with success. But this isn't just about celebrities. Regular people face similar issues all the time. Couples buy homes together, share bank accounts, support each other through school or career changes. When relationships end, disputes over who
deserves what can get messy quickly. Israel's case is just a high-profile version of what happens in households around the world. That's part of why it resonated with so many people. It's not just his story. It's a reflection of relationship challenges we all might face. And believe it or not, this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think in combat sports. Take Chuck Liddell, the former UFC light heavyweight champion. After his fighting career ended, Chuck went through a messy divorce that cost him millions. His ex-wife went after his fight purses, sponsorship money, and even tried to claim part of his UFC Hall of Fame bonus. The whole thing dragged on for years and left Chuck financially struggling, despite earning over $10 million during his career. Then there's Tito Ortiz. This guy was one of the biggest stars in early UFC history, but his relationship drama became almost as famous as his fights. His on and off relationship with adult film star Jenna Champion, we adult from Exclusive and Rave. The Flectives, his on and off relationship with adult film star Jenna Jameson, turned into a public mess involving custody battles, financial disputes, and social media wars. Tito spent more time in courtrooms than training camps for a while. What makes Israel's case interesting is that he caught this situation early and handled it smartly, unlike some of these other fighters who let legal battles drag on for years. Israel seemed to resolve things quickly and quietly. He learned from other fighters' mistakes and protected his wealth before it was too late. This is why more fighters today are hiring financial advisors and lawyers early in their careers. The UFC even offers financial literacy programs now, because they've seen too many champions end up broke after retirement. Smart fighters like Israel understand that protecting your money is just as important as winning fights. So, where do things stand now with this situation? As of our latest information, the legal aspects of this case appear to have been resolved, though the specific details, his recent performances in the Octagon, have shown he's still one of the most skilled fighters in the world. Whether this experience motivated him or he just compartmentalized it well, he's proven he can handle adversity outside the cage while maintaining his elite level inside it. What do you think about this whole situation? Do you think he handled it the right way? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more UFC content.